We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. We just crushed their face.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Glory UGA podcast brought to you by our good friends at MyBookie. If you're looking to get in on all the betting action this college football season, go to mybookie.ag right now. Sign up for a brand new account. Use our code UGA when you do so. And guys, your first bet is going to be fully covered all the way up to $500. Don't miss out on this deal while it lasts, guys. Jump on it now. All right. It is hard to believe, but bye week number 1 is already here. And you know what bye weeks are about. Bye weeks are about getting better, about working on you. And while we're all here on the Georgia fan base, understandably still high off that thrilling overtime win on the road against Tennessee, which certainly gave us plenty of reasons to be very excited about this Georgia football team. It's also clear, objectively speaking, that through the first 3 weeks of the season, there are some areas that this Georgia football team needs to address if it does ultimately want to win a national championship. So that is the mission here today on this video, identifying those issues that could hold the Dogs back from accomplishing that ultimate goal if they are not cleaned up on or improved on here this week during the bye week and in the coming weeks. So we're going to have a lot of fun with that, guys. But before we get there, if you're a diehard George fan, everything we do here is designed for you, including this episode. So go ahead, subscribe right now, turn those notifications on so you don't miss any of the videos we have coming your way the rest of this season and beyond. Like, comment, all that, guys. It's a huge help. Thank you so much for being here. I greatly appreciate all of your support. All right. So while it is admittedly, certainly a limited sample size against real competition this year. We played some baby seals the first 2 weeks of the season. You go on the road in a real hostile environment last week against Tennessee. So limited sample size against that type of competition. I still think it's fair to say, I don't think it's crazy to say that we have seen enough from this 2025 Georgia football team at this point, especially in that win on the road in Knoxville last weekend, to have reason to believe that Georgia football is once again one of the few teams out there in America that has the talent and potential to end up winning a national championship. There's only a handful of teams that can say that. And once again, I do think Georgia is among that handful. But being real with you guys, while that potential is there, we've seen that. This team also isn't quite fully there yet. It's got the bones of being a national championship team, but it's not a finished product. I think we've all seen that, guys. So with the Dogs on a bye this week and with no game to preview, I want to do today on this video what the team does itself and do some self-scouting, right? Take a good hard look in the mirror, be honest with yourself to identify potential areas of deficiency that need to be addressed if you do want to accomplish that ultimate goal of winning a national title, if this Georgia team does truly want to eventually develop into a national championship caliber football team. So with that, guys, let's dive in here. I got 3 areas. At first, I was gonna do 5, but you're kind of just creating issues at that point. So there's 3 areas to me that I think have stood out through the first 3 weeks of the season that do need to be addressed to some degree, maybe more so than other like smaller issues on the Georgia football team. So we're going to start with what I believe is clearly the most obvious glaring weakness or deficiency on this Georgia football team through the first 3 weeks of the season, and it was obvious as early as like the first half of week 1 against Marshall. And that is the right side of Georgia's offensive line, in particular the right tackle position. Okay. Now I'm going to take you guys back to about this time last week when I was previewing that matchup with with Tennessee. Alabama's already on my mind, guys. Previewing that matchup with Tennessee. And if you remember, following the Austin Peay game, a lot of people in the Georgia fan base were losing their mind over Gunnar Stockton not being good enough, not being the type of guy that Georgia could win with, not being able to throw the ball down the field, being scared to throw the ball down the field, not being able to go through progressions, not keeping his eyes downfield, all those things. People were out on Gunnar Stockton. And I sat here in this very room and told you guys, like, look, I kind of, sort of, a little bit get where you're coming from to a degree. I think it's being overblown, but I see where you're coming from. But my concern going into the Tennessee game was not as much about Gunnar Stockton. Like, I was still in wait and see mode, and now we've kind of seen a little bit more, right? But I was outright myself concerned about the right side of the offensive line going into that matchup against a good, maybe not a great Tennessee defense this year. They were great last year. I still think they're good, and they have some guys up front like Joseph's is a good pass rusher. That was my concern on the road, right? Where you don't really have the benefit of a snap count. You just go in the silent count most of the time, and you have some inexperienced guys on that right side of the offensive line against a good Tennessee defense, and you want to try to get the ball vertically down the field to take advantage of their backup cornerbacks there, which you think you might have an advantage out there, which we did. You might not be able to get those balls off if you can't protect the quarterback. And we had trouble protecting Gunner against Austin P at times, especially in that first half. So that was my concern. Okay. So I went into this game already thinking, like, oh my God, this might be a problem. And it was a problem for large chunks of that game against Tennessee. Mike Bobo, I know a lot of people hate Mike Bobo, and it is what it is, but I thought he did a fantastic job in his game plan and calling that game of working around the issues we had at the right tackle position. But right now, guys, the reality is all season long and really against Tennessee, we're playing musical chairs at right tackle. We just have not been able to find an answer. A big part of that, of course, is injuries. Ernest Green was going to be that guy to open the season, going to essentially his third year as a starter. Has missed some time in his career with injuries. Had a back injury his true freshman year that cost him that year. He's doing some really good things in the fall camp that year. Got hurt and then had back surgery, and that cost him the rest of his true freshman year. Comes back as a redshirt freshman, starts that season. Wasn't great right out the gate, but got better as the season went on. Last year, he didn't really build off that because he got hurt. So injuries have been a problem for Ernest Green. In week one, he goes down with an injury. He tried to come back in this game with Tennessee, but it was very clear that he's not 100%. And we've seen that story before, guys. This is not me trying to kill Ernest Green, but when Ernest Green is not 100%, we saw that last year, it's not a good look, okay? Hopefully, we can get Ernest back to 100%, and that will give him a chance to kind of live up to that really high-profile high school recruiting. That ranking, he was top 50 guy nationally out of California coming out of high school, but the injuries have really, really set him back. And guys, to be honest with you, I have my concerns long term about if Ernest Green is ever going to be able to get back fully healthy. Like the back has just been a problem, man. It's been a problem since his freshman year. And like when you guys that big, especially when they start having back issues, that can just pop up at any time. So I'm hopeful, man, for his sake, for our sake. I really want him to do well. This could be a money year for Ernest. So I want him to get back healthy for his sake long term, his career, but also like for us. It'd be great for the Georgia football team if we get Ernest Green back being healthy, being the kind of guy that we all have hoped at some point that he could grow into. But that has been a problem. He goes out, and then you have a ton of guys that have basically not played any meaningful football for Georgia, whether it's Jazar Jackson, who also got injured when he went in week two to open that game as the starter at right tackle. And he tries to come back in, and it was a disaster for him when he was injured because he can't move. And then you move Michael Weaney from right guard to right tackle, and he looks better at guard. At tackle, he has not looked like the answer at this point. And then you throw Bo Hewley in there, which is the guy coming out of the Austin P game that I thought performed better than anybody at that right tackle position against Austin P. If you remember, it was Glover at right guard and Hewley at right tackle that opened the second half against Austin P. And all of a sudden, some of those protection issues we had in the first half of not being able to get Gunner time to actually get the ball vertically down the field on some of those plays that we did dial up and that were there for us to hit, all of a sudden, Gunner now has more time in the pocket, and we do have time for those plays to develop. And I think Hewley was a big part of that. So I don't want to say mystified. I was confused at why Hewley did not get any run until late in this game. We're talking fourth quarter, guys. He played 15 total snaps in this game. Late in the fourth quarter, that game tying drive, overtime. But Hewley comes in again. What's he do? Instant impact in terms of pass pro. So there's a lot of options we have there. But again, the reality is if Ernest Green is not healthy, and I don't know what he's going to be coming out of this weekend. I don't know. The reality is if it's not him, there's a lot of inexperience there. And the issues we've had at that position have limited our ability to hit those explosive plays down the field. I know against Austin P, a lot of people want to put that on Gunner, saying he's too scared to take shots. He can't take the shots, whatever it might be. And there was like maybe a play or two where that was the case, as I showed you guys in that film session last week. But more often than that, it was the offensive line, the right side, the right tackle position primarily, who is not holding up a pass pro and giving us time for those plays to develop. And we play better teams, guys, who have better pass rushers. We're going to have to find a way to protect the quarterback. So we're going to have to hit some vertical shots on the field. You have to be explosive. It's hard to be explosive down the field if you can't protect your quarterback and give time for those routes to develop. So we need to find an answer there. And communication issues have also been a problem there. And I'll say this. The right side of the offensive line has been pretty good. The entire offensive line has been pretty good. I think really good for most of the season, getting moving up front in the run game, but it's pass pro. or the right side, those issues have been really glaring to me. So we need to find a way to clear that up. And sometimes it's not all like physical. Sometimes it's communication issues. And that comes with these guys being inexperienced and not having played a lot. It also comes with us having musical chairs at right tackle and to a lesser degree, right guard. So I'm hopeful that this week we sit down and we just hash it out and we decide, all right, what are we going to roll with? What is our answer going to be? Hopefully, Juan Gaston will be fully healthy coming out of this bye week so we can slide back in at right guard. Although I do think Glover has done a really good job there, so I'm okay with Glover. But Gaston won that job coming out of fall camp for a reason. He is a different kind of guy with his size and athleticism combination. But hopefully, him. If not, if he's not healthy, then Glover. But we need to settle on somebody at right tackle and give those guys time to get a lot of reps together during the bye week next week leading up to Alabama game so that we have a little bit of time to gel together in practice. I know you really it's hard to do that if it's not an actual game, but the more reps you get together during a bye week, during the week leading up to Alabama, the better it's going to be and the fewer communication issues that you're going to have, which had been some of the issues that we've had on that right side of the offensive line because we're just moving guys in and out so much there, so frequently. So that is priority number one for me, and I have to imagine it's got to be priority number one for the entire Georgia coaching staff. All right, moving on here. The next area that I would like to see Georgia improve on and work on during the bye week is finding a way to generate more explosive runs. Okay. We've done a pretty decent job of being explosive in the pass game, whether that's the screen game, whether it's against Tennessee, where we kind of opened up the vertical passing game a little bit more. We didn't hit a ton of shots on the field, but we hit some, right? But if you go back to the beginning of the season, go back to the offseason, we were spending a lot of time during the summer previewing this 2025 season that is now here. I kept saying over and over and over again, coming into the year, I told you guys probably 20 different times to the point you probably were like, all right, dude, I'm tired of hearing it. We get the message. But I kept saying one of the keys, maybe the key for this Georgia football team in 2025, if it wanted to reverse its fortunes from last year, which, hey, we won an SEC title, but we didn't actually win the ultimate goal of a national title. We fell short. So if you wanted to reverse that fortune and win the national title, we were going to have to find a way to get back to run the football like Georgia does, right? It just simply was not good enough a year ago. 15th out of 16 teams in the league in rushing offense a year ago, not even remotely close to what Georgia football should be doing running the football, right? So if you look at where we are now, 3 games in the season, the run game has been significantly improved from where it was a year ago. In rushing yards per game, in yards per rush, in rushing success rate, we're up across the board from last season, and in most cases, pretty significantly so. We've done a better job. If you're wondering why, why are we better running the football this year? One of the things is we've done a better job of finding ways to more effectively account for unblocked defenders, which was a problem for us last year. Gunnar Stockton's presence in the backfield, being a guy that's able to pull it from the quarterback position, does help us with that because it helps us with the numbers. I do also think we have more options in the backfield, and all of that is great. Like we also have more diversity. Like we've introduced more diversity into our run game. So with greater diversity, more options in the backfield, a quarterback that can run the football, helping us account for numbers and account for unblocked defenders the way that we were not able to last year. All of that is great. And it's all combined to create a better rushing attack this far in the season. And I'm very pleased with the progress that I have seen. So this is not me coming down on the Georgia run game saying it's not good enough. It's been much better than it was a year ago. But saying that, there's still one aspect of the run game that to me is conspicuously absent, that is still missing this season, and that is explosiveness in the run game. Yes, from an efficiency standpoint, from a raw number standpoint, we are running the ball better than we did a year ago, but we haven't really been much more explosive running the football than we were a year ago. And guys, we were not explosive last year, but right now we are tied for ninth in the SEC with only 3 runs of 20 or more yards through the first 3 games of the season. So you guys can do the math. I'm not a math guy. You guys can help me with this, right? 3 runs of 20 more yards, 3 games. Oh, yeah, that's 1 run on average each game of 20 or more yards. And 2 of those games were against Marshall and Austin Peay. All right, get my point there? We're also tied for 13th in the SEC with 0 runs of 30 or more yards. And I want you guys to think about this. All right, let's go back. Let's rewind the clock. Let's go back to when Georgia was winning national titles in 21 and 22. And also, you can go back to when we were playing for a national title back in 2017 with Nick Chubb and Sonny Michel, which I know those guys are different, right? Those guys are dudes. But when we were winning national titles and playing for national titles under Kirby Smart, we were routinely inside the top 3 in the SEC. in explosive runs from scrimmage. We were able to generate explosive runs on the ground. Last year, one of the big issues we had, there were a lot of them, but one of the big issues that we had was not just the run game in general, but specifically, we could not generate anything explosive from the running back position. We would drop to dead last in the SEC last year in runs of 20 or more yards. And right now, through 3 games, not much better, slightly, marginally better, but not all that much. And that's a concern for me to a degree because when you play elite teams, the type of teams that we're going to have to beat eventually if we do want to end up winning a national title, which is where my mind is, guys. That's where Georgia football is. Everything I look at it through the prism of what does Georgia need to do to win national title? Because I think we have the potential to do it. We have the talent, we have the players to do it, but there's some things we got to clean up on. And this is one of those areas. I think this is an area that we need to improve on if we want to win national title because we're going to play elite teams. And when you play elite teams, it's really hard to put together 14 play drives where you run the ball 13 times and put up 6 on the board like we did against Tennessee in that opening drive in the second half. Like, that's great. You can demoralize the team, but are you going to be able to do that consistently enough to win games, to beat elite teams? I don't know, man. Usually not, right? So you need to find a way to generate explosive plays, and we're just not doing it right now at the rate that I think that we need to for a number of reasons. And it's a variety of things, guys. It's not one thing. Sometimes it's someone on the offensive line. Maybe there's a miscommunication and somebody doesn't block the right guy. So you're just letting a guy run free. Sometimes it's not someone on the offensive line not holding their block quite long enough. They need to hold it a split second longer. If they did, we can break one, but they just can't quite hold it long enough. Sometimes that's happening on the perimeter. I think we've done a much better job of blocking on the perimeter in the screen game and in the run game this year. But there have been some plays where like we're this close to breaking a long one, but somebody on the perimeter just doesn't quite hold their block on. They need to hold it just a split second longer, and they haven't been able to do that. But I think more often than those occurrences, it's been the running backs. And I think they've done a great job for us guys in a lot of ways this year. But when they get one-on-one in space, they're not consistently making that guy miss, whether that's breaking tackles or whether that's just putting a move on somebody, juking them and making them miss in space. We're not doing a good enough job of that. The running backs have done a great job of running with physicality. I think of seeing the hole. Even Nate Frazier has certainly improved on that. I think Chauncey Bowens and Dwight Phillips have done a really good job of seeing the hole. The patience is improving. I think Nate Frazier, again, has done a better job in recent weeks. He did a much better job against Tennessee of being patient, allowing blocks to set up, and allowing him to kind of see that hole develop. So they've done a good job on a lot of fronts in the run game. But when the offensive line and the scheme gets you to the second and third level, which has been the case quite a few times, a lot of the times we're running the football this season, especially against Austin P and Marshall, your job as the running back is to make someone miss. You really didn't do anything. If the line's blocking, they're opening this massive hole for you, you can drive a truck through. The scheme has use motion to get guys out of your way and to clear the box. Well, you didn't really do anything, right? People did that for you. They gave you the opportunity to get to the second and third level, and now you're one-on-one in space. Your job is to make that guy miss, and that's where we're falling short. We're not doing a good enough job, consistently enough of that. And sometimes, like, we're just getting tripped up. Like, we're putting a move on him. Dwight Phillips a couple times has been like this close to breaking it for like 40, 50-plus yards, but a shoelace tackle here or there. Sometimes it seems like almost like we're too eager to put our shoulder down and run through guys. Sometimes just I get that, like, you want to run with power, you want to set the tone, but make a move, put a move on the guy and see if you can take a 7-8 yard gain and turn it into a 40-30 yard gain. So that's what I want to see from this Georgia run game. And here's the number for you guys. So we're top 5 in the SEC in runs of 10 or more yards, right? So that's weird, right? So we're number 9 in 20 or more yards. We're down number 13 in plays of 30 or more yards, but we're top 5 in rushing plays of 10 or more yards. What does that tell me? That tells me that the offensive line and the scheme are doing a good job of getting them back to that second and third level where we can give them 5-6 yards, but we're not doing as good of a job once we get to that point of making that next guy miss and taking those 10-yard gains and turning them into those 30, 40-yard gains. And that is where I want to see this team improve, this run game improve. We've shown some explosiveness in the pass game. We've shown the ability to do that. Now, I want to see more of that in the run game. And finally, guys, the last area that I want to address, I think we need to address during this bye week is the pass rush. Okay. Now, right now, through 3 games, we're second to last in the SEC in sacks. We only have 3 on the year. 3 through 3 games. Do the math with me again here, guys. 3 games, 3 sacks. That's 1 sack per game. That's not good enough, especially when you're playing teams again like Marshall and Austin Peay. However, saying that, I am not freaking out about this one because I do think that there's context to these numbers. This is obviously a limited sample size. And when you go back to Austin Peay and Marshall, yeah, you would think ostensibly on the surface here, we should have a lot of success rushing the passer. They shouldn't be able to block us up front, right? Well, yeah, they shouldn't be able to block us up front, but those coaches also know that, so they design a game plan with that in mind, where they're trying to get the ball out of their quarterback's hands as quickly as possible. And you saw that against Austin Peay and Marshall. And when that is the case, when that is their game plan, especially on standard downs, then you're not going to have time for the pass rush to actually get back there and really affect the quarterback because they're not allowing you to do that by the way they game plan for you, the plays that they are calling. So there's some context there. And then it's Tennessee. Obviously, that's much more real competition. But Tennessee made a number of adjustments offensively. We talked about this a little bit earlier in the week. You can go back and check out that episode if you want to. I broke down some more of the adjustments that Tennessee made offensively. But we know Tennessee has not had any success against Georgia under Josh Heupel coming into this year's game. Never surpassed more than 17 points against Georgia, right? Obviously, that changed in a big way this year, and they made a couple of adjustments to make that happen. One of those was trying to keep more backs and tight ends into block to protect the quarterbacks. You remember back in the second half of last year, especially, guys, like we lit up Nico Iamaleava, and that really limited what they were able to do offensively. And clearly, Josh Heupel spent the offseason looking at that, saying, hey, okay, that was a problem for us. Our offensive line's not as good this year. We lost 4 out of 5 starters. So what is our game plan going to be here to limit that Georgia pass rush? So one of the things he did is he kept more tight ends in, kept more running backs in. There were many snaps where they were going max protect guys, where they were sending only 2 guys out into routes. There were a number of times they were only sending 3 guys out into routes. Why? Because they were trying to protect. They did a good job of play action, but when they were running play action, if you were wondering, why are we getting to him? Because like play action, those are longer developing plays, right? Well, when they were going play action, by and large, they were either keeping a tight end in or a tight end and a running back and going max protect. And we're rushing 4, maybe 5, really never more than that. And they've got 6, 7 guys in there to protect the quarterback. Well, then all of a sudden now you're vastly outnumbered and you're not going to be able to get to him, right? So there's some context there. And it is a small sample size. But saying that, I still think that the pass rush and our ability to generate a pass rush does bear some watching the rest of the season, because you've got to be able to consistently affect the passer if you're going to win a national title. If you're going to beat the types of teams that can win a national title, that have the quarterbacks that are capable of winning a national title, you're going to have to affect them. Like, how do you counteract an elite quarterback? You harass him. You make life difficult for him, right? You saw that in the Super Bowl last year. That's what the Eagles did to Patrick Mahomes, right? You saw that even last weekend when they had that rematch. So that's something that I think does bear watching. I'm not sold that it's a problem. Again, there's context there, small sample size, so I'm not sold that it's some major problem. All right, I'm not telling you to freak out about it. But I'm also at the same time not sold that it's not a problem, if that makes sense. I think it's TBD. I'm kind of like where I was with Gunnar Stockton coming in last week. I'm not saying I couldn't say he couldn't do it, and I wasn't saying he could do it. I'm in wait and see mode. That's kind of where I am with the pass rush, but that makes me a little uneasy with some of the teams coming up on our schedule that we're going to have to beat. Now, on the bright side, I do think we have an absolute dude. I think Chris Cole is a straight up dude. Big time pass rusher, incredibly versatile option. A guy that can play off the ball inside linebacker, guy that can play jack linebacker, rush off the edge, guy that can play that Sam linebacker if we're in base personnel, almost like basically servicing as like our star defender situationally if teams are going heavy personnel. That guy is a big time pass rusher. His bend, his length off the edge is crazy stuff. That's a future NFL player right there. Big time, probably maybe potentially a first round draft pick. I think he has that type of potential. He is what I thought he would be coming into the season. What I spent most of the offseason saying I felt he was going to be. He is a legit disruptor. Now, he has 2 sacks, right? Now, the reason he doesn't have more, there's a couple of plays where he was very, very close, but when they're getting the ball out of their hands very quickly, against like Marshall and Austin Peay, that limits your ability to get there. But the fact that he was as close as he was to getting to those quarterbacks at times, considering how quickly they were getting the ball out, that shows you what kind of disruptor that Chris Cole can be. So love him. Very confident in him. But my concern is outside of Chris Cole. I'm not sure who the guys are outside of him right now. We lost a ton of pass rush production last year, guys, and we talked about that in the offseason. And I thought Gabe Harris would be a big part of that answer. And I think Gabe Harris can still be a big part of that answer as a guy who has some versatility, can play that 5 tech, can play Jack Force situationally at times, can move inside at times, get on guards. Because Gabe Harris, if you remember, coming out of high school, was recruited initially as a Jack linebacker, as like a pass rusher. Now he's gained some ways up to 270, so he can play that 5 tech for us. And he's still got some quickness in his game. He's still got some really strong pass rush moves, but gaining the weight, which he needed to if he was going to function effectively against the run as a 5 tech defensive end. He had to, guys. He had to, man, if he was going to be on the field at that position. I will say it seems like that has maybe slowed down that first step like a little bit. He's maybe not as explosive off the ball as he was when he was like 245, 250, just naturally. Makes sense if you're 270, 275 right now. So he is still a really good pass rusher from that position, but I don't know if he's quite as dynamic of a pass rusher as he was when he was like 245, 250. And to me, the Jack linebacker position is the one that I am far more concerned about. We're just basically right now not getting anything from that position on standard downs rushing the passer. When Chris Cole moves in that position at times on 3rd and long, like we get into our dime package, yes, he's able to affect the quarterback. But when we're in standard downs and they drive back to pass, we're not doing a really good job of converting to pass rush. And we're not really doing anything to get after the quarterback. Again, I know there's some context there. Austin P. Marshall getting the ball out quickly. Tennessee going some max protect. I understand that. But we've gotten one-on-one at times on the outside at Jack. We're not really getting enough pressure. We're not winning enough of those opportunities. And Quintavious Johnson, in particular, he's getting a lot of those standard down snaps there. He's done a fantastic job against the run. Both Q and Gabe Harris did an awesome job on the edge, setting the edge, defending the perimeter run game. An incredible job. I think better than what we saw each of the last 2 years, honestly. I think they've done a really, really nice job so far. But we're not getting much of a pass rush from Quintavious Johnson right now. And that's kind of the catch-22. Like, it's a fine line. Like, you want to have somebody that can protect, that can defend the run, set the edge with authority, but you also need to be able to affect the passer. Ideally, you have a guy that can do both, like Nolan Smith, but those guys don't grow on trees. Those guys are rare. Those guys are first-round draft picks for a reason. I'm of the opinion that we desperately need Elo Madozi to turn it on. He's played some. Each game he's played more and more and gotten more run with the first team defense. But Quintavious Johnson is still the guy that's getting more of those opportunities. I would love to see Elo become that guy for us because I do think he has more potential as a pass rusher. I think he's more explosive off the edge. I think his pass rush repertoire is better than where Quintavious Johnson is right now in his development. But Q has done a better job defending the run, and that's big for us on standard downs. Our general defensive philosophy, guys, is let's stop the run on first and second down, get them 3rd and long, then we bring our dime package, we get really exotic, and we come after you, and we make life hell for you, right? So to do that, we need to stop the run on first and second down. That is a priority for the Georgia defense. And Quintavious Johnson has been a big part of that for us these first 3 games. But I think Madozi does have more pass rush ability, so I'm hopeful that we can spend some time getting him more up to speed and more comfortable in this defense so he can play more snaps for us against a team like Alabama coming up here in about a week and a half. And I do think our inside linebackers are probably going to have to be a major part of our pass rush efforts, a la 2021, when you've got guys like Channing Tindall and you've got Quay Walker and you got Nakobe Dean. I do think we have some guys from the inside linebacker position that can be explosive pass rushers, like Chris Cole, like Justin Williams, like Braylon Wilson, even CJ Allen. I think has become a much better blitzer as his career has progressed, and those guys are going to factor in as well. And I do think that we have some guys up front, guys like Christian Miller and Jordan Hall, and I love Xavier McLeod. I think Xavier McLeod is playing at a really high level right now. And of course, Elijah Griffin. I think we have some guys up front on the interior of the defensive line that can give us more push up front, but we need to do a better job of, like, we always play run first on standard downs. Like, that's what we're going to do at Georgia. That's just what we do. But we got to do a better job of when we read pass of converting that to a pass rush and pressuring the quarterback. So again, I'm not saying that's an all-out problem right now. I'm not convinced it's a major issue, but I'm also not convinced it's not a major issue. I'm in wait-and-see mode there, but I do want to see us start to get after the passer better than we have. Context notwithstanding, coming against Alabama, we need to find a way at home, at night, with that crowd, to make life a living hell for Ty Simpson and that Alabama offense. You saw some of the issues we had in the secondary, guys. So you want to be able to get the quarterback and make it hard for them to take some of those shots down the field, which they're going to try to do with guys like Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard. So there you go, guys. This Georgia team, again, absolutely has the potential to develop into a national championship team. It's just not quite there yet. There are some areas to clean up, but if we can use this bye week and the coming weeks to find answers on the right side of the offensive line, to work on generating more explosive runs and finding more pass rush production, this Georgia team is going to be one tough out come December and January. But all right, guys, thank you so much for being here. I greatly appreciate you guys. We'll be back early next week with some preview of this big Georgia-Alabama matchup. We have a ton of content for you guys regarding that game. So make sure to subscribe right now. If you're a diehard Georgia fan, you don't want to miss out. Subscribe, like, comment, all that, guys. I greatly appreciate you. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. But for now, I'm out of here. Thank you so much. And as always, go Dogs!
Man, is there going to be some property destroyed tonight. 26-21.